io le stavo dicendo.
Riprendiamo i lavori. Let us resume our proceedings after a good coffee. I think that we are all ready to begin again. Now, I would like to make an announcement. Tomorrow, only for those who are leaving ahead of the schedule, well, they will have the possibility to have the Mass at 8, only for those who are leaving, whereas the others will have the Mass according to the schedule. Let us now welcome His Eminence Cardinal Beniamino Stella. He was created Cardinal on the 27th of February 2014 by Pope Francis, Prefect of the Congregation for the Clergy, member of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, for the Divine Worship and the Discipline of Sacraments, of the Causes of Saints, Congregation for Bishops, Institutes of Consecrated Life, and Societies of Apostolic Life, and also the Congregation for Catholic Education. Again, he's also member of the Secretariat for Communication of the Pontifical Committee for International Eucharistic Conferences, a member of the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City, for the Vatican State. Also, I would like to highlight the fact that he's also a member of our Dicastery, because this is why he's very dear to us. He's a close friend of ours. The Congregation for the Clergy organized two important events. The first one was the promulgation of the Ratio Fundamentalis Institutionis Sacerdotalis, which took place in October, on the 8th of December 2016. And therefore this document was promulgated, and in October 2017 a conference, an international conference, was organized on Ratio Formationis. I would also like to highlight a passage of the text that Cardinal Stella read to Pope Francis, because I think that it could be very useful to us too. His Eminence said, "We felt it important to call the bishops and priests charged with the initial and ongoing formation of the clergy and the various episcopal conferences, together with some rectors, so that they could share on the importance of a renewed ecclesial communion and of a fruitful dialogue aimed at developing the national ratios, as well as the formation programs of the seminaries. We also had the time to reflect on the basis of formation and priestly identity. We also focused on the importance of accompaniment and discernment." At the same time, the Cardinal reiterated what Pope Francis said in his address to seminarians and priests in Bologna on the 1st of October 2017. Pope Francis said, "The Lord comes to us in many ways, in our scarcity of vocations, in our scarcity of possibilities, but we are not allowed to have a psychology of survival and failure." I think, Your Eminence, that our dicasteries, they work together, because we also organized a joint session. Our dicastery, together with the Dicastery for the Clergy, organized a session on the ratio. Therefore, this means that we have already started to collaborate. We would like to thank you for your presence here. I apologize for my voice because I have a flu. It's because I have a flu. However, I hope you can hear clearly my message, and I hope that you will be able to follow me in these 30 to 35 minutes in which I will address the theme, the human dimension in the journey of consecrated life. And we'll particularly focus on the new Ratio Formationis Sacerdotales. That was published a year ago. It was published on the 8th of December, in coincidence with the celebration of the Our Lady's Immaculate. When we talk about Ratio Fundamentalis, or maybe it is an ecclesial vocabulary, but Ratio Fundamentalis refers to the general guidelines on priestly formation. I would like to say it is a sort of a Magna Carta, which is not a theoretical, theological document, but rather it is a very hands-on document, a very practical document. These are the guidelines that need to be followed for the formation of clerics to priestly life. Now, the Ratio, that was published, again, as I said, a year ago, puts a specific emphasis on the human aspects, the human dimension that at times is neglected. When I am asked what are the characteristics of the new Ratio, I always answer that we have highlighted, we've moved away from the academic themes, but rather we have embraced the human dimension of the young people who are getting ready for priesthood or also consecrated life as clerics. So if this characteristic has a specificity, is exactly this focus on the life of a young man, these human characteristics, his mental and spiritual characteristics. This focus is also the result of the fact that the competence on seminaries that today is entrusted to the Congregation for the Clergy up until 2013 was entrusted to the Congregation for Catholic Education, the congregation that cares for studies, faculties and universities. Therefore, we received this competency and this major change was enacted by Pope Benedict, and in doing so, he probably wanted to highlight this aspect. That is, in order to form priests, we well, of course, the studies, the academic curricula are important, but that is not a fundamental issue. What is absolutely necessary and fundamental is the human dimension, the spiritual dimension of any candidate to priesthood. Now, let me now move to the core of my presentation. I wish to thank the Congregation for the Institutes of Consecrated Life and the Societies of Apostolic Life, and especially the Cardinal Prefect and His Excellency Monsignor Carvalho, the Secretary, and the Under-Secretary, Sister Nicola Spezzati, for inviting me to take part in this conference on the theme Vocation, Ministry and Consecrated Life. We've recently celebrated the conclusion of the year of consecrated life. Many interesting themes, but also areas of concerns were addressed during this year. One of the major themes was the drop in the number of vocations, but at the same time we addressed the hopes for the future that imply a creative courage in rethinking forms, models, and styles in which we express our sequela Christi. But as we know, in the experience of faith and in ecclesial life, before organizing or modifying our structures, even though this is necessary, what is needed is a renewed stimulus of the heart to follow the Lord, while listening to the Spirit and daily offering our faithfulness to Him. This painstaking work that we conduct on ourselves, that involves all the various facets and dimensions of the person, lasts our whole lifetime. And this is what also in the new Ratio Fundamentalis is called formation. It is one unbroken missionary journey of discipleship. Ratio number 54, in which one unbroken missionary journey of discipleship in which we let the Holy Spirit shape us, and under the guidance of the Church, we are led to the full configuration, to the full likeness to Christ. On the other hand, consecrated life is the desire, but also the attempt to radically live the gospel, following in the footsteps of Christ and living our life, our existence in an intimacy with Him. If we do not follow in the footsteps of the Lord and we do not nourish our willingness to learn from Him, our consecrated life will have no roots. However, it will be a grave mistake to think that we can achieve this likeness to Christ and we can get to our consecration of our lives to Him without caring for our own humanity. The experience of faith and also the experience of a special consecration is not something to show off or a habit that we wear when we like, without letting it touch our deepest dimensions. If it were so, and also to quote the Pope Francis, one of his very effective images, we would simply be, said the Pope, pagans with 2 coats of paint. We are Christians, consecrated and priests, only with and through our humanity. This aspect has probably been neglected and put aside for some time, has now been brought back to the fore also thanks to a deeper magisterial and theological reflection supported by some research work in the field of human sciences. Human and affective maturity is a fundamental basis. It is, we might say, the precondition to access a life of special consecration and to access priesthood. The Ratio Fundamentalis highlights in its contents, but also in its general approach, the need to care for our human dimension, and it says that we will need to focus and insist on its importance. And at the same time, it states that the lack of a well-structured and balanced personality is a serious and objective hindrance to the continuation of formation for the priesthood. Number 63. Now, I will draw inspiration from the indications of the Ratio, and I will explore some aspects which are, in my view, very significant, and because they lay out the content of what we call human formation in the field, in the context of a consecrated life. First, to get to know oneself. The first indication offered by the Ratio Fundamentalis on the goal, on the objective of human formation is that, and I quote, is intended to educate the person in the truth of his being, in freedom and in self-control. It is meant to overcome all kinds of individualism and to foster the sincere gift of self, opening him to the generous dedication to others. Number 63. And therefore, the first journey that we have to venture on is the journey towards our inner selves. But we have to be careful because at times, even without realizing it, what might happen is that spiritual life and our vocational choices represent a sort of refuge from one's life and from the reality. In fact, it is possible that for fear of coming to terms with who we really are, or with some personal, family, or social situations, we adopt as a sort of possible solution a sort of plan B, as I call it, which means to show an outside box that is formally perfect, as could be a vocational journey or a special consecration, but this is done only to hide or to flee what we do not want to address seriously. So, a plan B is to when we resort to something when there are no other options left. So we have a plan B, and in this case, it would be I'll become a priest, a brother, or a sister. I call this a plan B to say that simply we take refuge in a religious community, in a convent, in a seminary, but without really having that fundamental structure that is essential to fully live the commitment of our consecration, and especially the commitment to the priestly orders. And therefore, we simply wear a mask that can cover what is alive inside of us, and this can allow us to escape reality. But rather, the first and foremost task of human formation is to help the person to get to know him or herself on following an interior path that involves all the other formative dimensions. And it may also resort, if necessary, to the support of psychology, but this especially implies a constant synergy between the candidate and the formator. The goal is to achieve a real self-awareness and awareness of self, without which the person might run the risk of developing his or her ego and vocation through a distorted image of him or herself, vainglory, narcissism on one part, or not believing too much in oneself. Both reveal that the person doesn't really know his or her ego, and this may have serious relational but also pastoral impacts. Those who wish to be a religious man or a woman or a priest has to know his or her worth, to accept his or her vulnerability, to learn to call his or her emotions by name, as well as his or her sentiments and feelings. He or she needs to recognize his or her needs and passions, and especially they have to accept and reconcile with their life story, which always includes both richness but also wounds. In this way, we will avoid the risk of an oppressive spirituality intended as an escape from the world, from passions, lived as is from the outside of our humanity, a spirituality that may even generate fear and repression. Following Christ instead means that we are joyous creatures, that we fully live our lives and we're saved by Him. This afternoon, I read the address that the Pope to the consecrated of Bangladesh. I really recommend that you read it. You will feel really supported. The theme of joy is a theme that is being repeated many times by the Pope. As Pope Francis said at the end of the year devoted to consecrated life, he said, "Where there are religious, there is joy." We are called to know and show that God is able to fill our hearts to the brim with happiness, that we need not seek our happiness elsewhere, that the authentic fraternity found in our communities increases, said the Pope, increases our joy, and that our total self-giving in service to the Church, to families and young people, to the elderly and the poor, brings us lifelong personal fulfillment. None of us should be dour, discontented, and dissatisfied, for a gloomy disciple is a disciple of gloom. This is what the Pope said. This inner joy can accompany also the most difficult moments of our journey, of our life, of the life of our communities, can be achieved when we are well rooted in ourselves and in the right awareness of our value and of our vulnerabilities. We live a peaceful and serene relationship with ourselves, God, and with our neighbor. We need to have a specific attention, especially in the formation houses, because this work of inner maturity should never be neglected, but quite the opposite. We should nurture the capacity to achieve a solid identity, so that our humanity can become embedded in the action of God, and it can become transparent in vis-à-vis other people. We may also now recall Jesus' invitation to build our house on the rock, so that it may resist the bad weather. In fact, if we do not have a healthy awareness of ourselves, if we do not know how to read ourselves, how to accept our strengths and vulnerabilities, the building of the house of a specific consecration or a priesthood is built on the sand of superficiality, and it runs the risk to crumble when the first difficulty arises. Evident signs of human immaturity in this sense are those dynamics that Pope Francis often called spiritual mundanity. That is the obsessive search for one's glory, the excessive interest on our aspects, on our social image, or at the same time, neglect, the lack of inner freedom, and an obsessive concern of what others think of us. These are all aspects that, in one way or another, show the incapacity to grow, incapacity to mature, and to know ourselves. So I think that during the time of formation, it is fundamental to venture on this journey of maturation with profound honesty. We need to surrender ourselves and be shaped by others. This will allow the candidate not to lose the roots of his or her personality, but he or her will put at the service of the gospel and the mission his truths. He or she will be able to interpret his own life story with the eyes of God, and he or she will address all the various obstacles that may arise and that prevent him from being faithful to the Lord. I also would like to remember what Pope Francis said on this aspect when he spoke to the priests. This can also apply to each and every one of us. It doesn't matter the specific form of the consecration that we've chosen. In November 2015, the Pope said this: a good priest is first of all a man with his own humanity, who knows his own story with its riches and its wounds, and who has learned to make peace with it, reaching an underlying serenity, that of a disciple of the Lord. Human formation is therefore a necessity for priests, so that they learn not to be dominated by their limitations, but instead to build on their talents. A priest who is a peaceful man will know how to spread serenity around him, even in the most trying of moments, conveying the beauty of his relationship with the Lord. It is not normal for a priest to be often sad, said the Pope, nervous or harsh of character. It is not okay, and it does no good neither for the priest nor for his people. Second point, to develop human virtues. When you can fully be yourselves, then you will become free, and you develop a stable personality that can help human virtues thrive. The new ratio lists some of these virtues, such as humility, courage, common sense, magnanimity, right judgment, and discretion, tolerance and transparency, love of truth, and honesty. Number 93. Now, these values and attitudes slowly become the distinguishing traits of the personality, and little by little they integrate with a spiritual life, thus generating one thought and favoring the capacity to relate to the others. Specifically, the ratio asserts that the focus on human dimension, especially during formation, will also be described, integrated in the commitment to govern one's character, grow in a strong spirit, learn faithfulness, and the respect for justice. Number 63.
Now, these human virtues require a certain level of inner freedom, which is itself a part of human maturity, and they help the person to grow as an adult, able to freely take up the responsibilities to which the life and the ministry call him or her to develop, good critical capacity to be able to judge events in an objective manner, to have zeal for the things entrusted to him or her, and last but not least, to be able to make choices consistent with their vocations. Now, this integration between human growth and spiritual life is necessary for spirituality not to run the risk of being disincarnated and become abstract. Sometimes we find priests or consecrated men or women, or even entire communities that devote themselves generously to very high commitments of contemplation and charity, thus neglecting the smallest details of daily life, and namely of communitarian life. For example, the kindness, the capability of smiling, of saying hello, that develop an environment of cordiality or discreet or silent generosity, allowing us to render a small service, but hiding it from the world. In a homily delivered in Buenos Aires during the Christmas Mass back in 2003, the then Cardinal Bergoglio delivered on the very fact, and I quote, Jesus cherished the small details, the petty detail, for example, that a sheep was lost, the tiny detail that the wine was about to finish, the tiny detail of having oil enough reserved for the lamps, the tiny detail of getting informed on how many breads were left. Well, I'd like to remind here shortly a page of the literature borrowed from the well-known text of Lewis, the Screwtape Letters, where an experienced devil, Screwtape, wrote to a young devil to train him on how to take Christians on his side. And amongst the counsels, there was this counsel of instilling in them, please be careful, the negligence of self-evident things. So Screwtape says, make them get interested in hairy things or the lowest things. The result will always be the same. Make them never be interested in self-evident things. Jesus instead was interested in petty things that do not seem to be deserving attention. For example, a woman baking or a seed falling in fertile soil. Well, human maturity allows us to be free and psychically stable and able to have the major human virtues blossom in us, makes us attentive to small things of daily life and get integrated with the world around us to be able to manage situations and be able to live the principle of graduality. Third, to be able of sound, effective relationships. Now, the last aspect I'd like to recall, and even the most important one, has to do with the psychic and affective and sexual maturity of those who are about to follow Christ, the Lord, to become his disciples and embrace a consecrated life. On this reality, we will never be repeating things too much. In several occasions, even talking to the superiors of religious orders, Pope Francis recalled the superficiality, the superficial manner through which in vocation we receive people that are not effective and sexually mature. Now, the great risk is of entrusting the apostolic mission to priests and consecrated men and women who have not integrated the needs, the desires, and the pulses of their sexuality in the vocation project. And so they are fragile, they are vulnerable in their capability of standing the natural tensions existing between the flesh and the spirit. And generally speaking, they do not, they're not able of loving in serenity and with generosity others this is a risk for their choice of celibacy. Ratio Fundamentalis states that human formation, and I quote, focuses on the constitution of a stable personality characterized by emotional balance, by self-control, and a well-integrated sexuality. This ability has to do with his ability to establish well-balanced interpersonal relationships and his ability to handle positively moments of solitude. Now, effectively stable people develop a series of gifts, making them prepared to live relationships and find out in the journey of their existence the joy of loving and being loved, and finally to be able to give themselves with gratuitousness. It is part of such effective maturation, the capability of establishing a relationship with every human being and in every context, to exceed selfishness, to live a community life, and to accept with serenity their sexuality and to get it orientated in the desire to live it in celibacy and chastity, to be able to dialogue and cooperate with others, to be able to manage conflicts, and to be able to maintain emotional and affective balance, even when we have to face difficult situations. And so, as you can understand, this is a very rich reality that would help the interpersonal relations in our communities and would prevent a whole series of tensions that sometimes cause the spending of a lot of energies with an impact on evangelizing and missionary action. Now, the art of effective formation in the human being consists in developing this capability of loving, involving the human person in its entirety, the physical, psychic, and spiritual dimensions that is expressed through the gratuitousness and the fullness of the gift in the image of Christ, the groom. And this gives the consecrated serenity, capability of beating protagonism and living the sphere of their affectivity in the logic of the gift. At the same time, this implies the development of the same feelings as Christ and the tendency to live using the same compassion of Jesus when he approached others and was looking, namely, the wounded, the marginalized, and those most in need. There's a need to there's a need of consecrated men and women that are mature in affection, able to live love, to be grateful, to recognize the full dignity of the other, instead of just looking for their for the fulfillment of their needs. And so they will be able to develop the art of tenderness, of welcoming and encounter, thus becoming mediators of God's mercy in the world, as the Pope said yesterday to the consecrated of Bangladesh. And here I come to my conclusion. Knowing oneself, being intimately free to develop human virtues and reach that psychic and affective maturity, allowing us to be people able of genuine love relations, well, these being the three major pillars of the human dimension. Specific attention paid to this sphere of life requires the development of careful discernment that we are called upon to make, namely at the initial stage of our vocation, and then which has to become concrete in a constant personal and community accompaniment, even in ongoing formation. In our journey of special consecration, it is necessary, and it will become even more important in the future, that the people be helped to be mature and reconciled, able to look with serenity their strong points and their weaknesses, so that spiritual life might intervene to change and to accomplish the human person, not to escape reality or to repress one's needs, or even worse, be an alibi for the search of oneself and one's glory. And this will be a great challenge for the future of consecrated life, i.e. to have consecrated men and women and priests that are profoundly humane, because, and I quote by way of conclusion, Pope Francis. He said so in an address to the Roman Curia for the Christmas greetings. He said, "Those who renounce their humanity renounce everything." Once we find it hard to weep seriously or to laugh heartily, we have begun our decline and the process of turning from humans into something else. Humanity is knowing how to show tenderness and fidelity and courtesy to all. Spirituality and humanity, while innate qualities, are a potential needing to be activated fully, attained completely, and demonstrated daily. Thank you very much.
Eminenza, penso che
Your Eminence, I think that the people applauding means that the audience and all of us really appreciated your reflection that was placed in the fertile soil on which we have been dwelling. So seeds had been planted yesterday and today, and you made the most of them. So you focused on the human person, their minds, their souls. But this human being is formed in an uninterrupted journey of discipleship, an uninterrupted journey of discipleship. But there's constant attention that you have stressed in many passages of your speech, i.e. attention to discernment. Now this makes a link with our reflection of these 2 days. So the very attention at the very first hour in youth ministry, the paradigm of discernment is of paramount importance. So the human person approaches us, comes to us because he's fascinated by a certain lifestyle and interior core. But discernment is underlying. Why? Because this is a constant journey to lead us to what you called a reconciled vision on one's story. And your final mentioning to be able to temper our mission, our discipleship, our discernment according to the tiny, small details of everyday life, as said by Pope Francis in Evangelii Gaudium. Because this being reality is always superior to idea. So thank you very much for being very concrete.
Bene.
Well, this said, let's get ready for the Vespers, through which we conclude this very enriching day. Thank you.
Ho detto già la preghiera. Ho annunciato già che ci prepariamo alla preghiera vespertina. Non so se è stata chiara.
Please let us get ready for the Vespers, for the evening prayer. It will be here in fact, the lights are dimmed, because there will be a special ceremony. And then please remember to return the translation equipment that you will return when you leave, but now we will have the prayer. And then when you leave, please return the translation equipment. Thank you.
Chiedo la cortesia dei lettori per questo momento di preghiera di venire qui avanti. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Lingua portoghese, ok. Sì, vuoi dare tu? Questo momento si svolge in questo modo. All'inizio non ci sarà nessuna luce, solo le guide delle scale. Entrerà una lampada portata da una sorella e da questa luce della lampada si accenderanno le altre lampade e poi tutto l'auditorium. Il prefetto credo che presiede questo momento di preghiera. Okay. Il primo salmo è solista in portoghese e il Gloria al Padre lo recitiamo tutti insieme in lingua portoghese. Seguiamo il libretto. Il secondo salmo e il terzo abbiamo il cantore che canterà insieme a voi e il coro fa l'altra risposta. Dopo la lettura breve ci sarà qualche secondo di pausa, stand-by, con una piccola musica, e anche il Magnificat viene cantato con coro e assemblea insieme al solista. Alla fine canteremo tutti insieme il Padre nostro, Pater Noster, in lingua latina. Latino. E poi ci sarà la benedizione finale. L'inno, voi avete 6 strofe, ma noi canteremo solo la prima, la seconda, la terza e la sesta. 1, 2, 3, 6. 1, 2, 3, 6. Ok. Chi deve cantare può venire su, chi doveva fare il coro, le stesse sorelle e fratelli di prima. Se potete salire sul palco, per favore. Possiamo spegnere le luci. Questa notte non è più notte perché viene la tua luce. Grande importanza sia spirituale che pastorale ha il lucernario, con il quale iniziamo i primi vespri della prima domenica di Avvento. In quest'ora, infatti, per orientare la nostra speranza alla luce che non conosce tramonto, noi preghiamo e chiediamo che di nuovo venga sopra di noi la luce e invochiamo la venuta di Cristo che ci porterà la grazia della luce eterna. Ora si possono accendere tutte le luci.
Nel nome del Padre e del Figlio e dello Spirito Santo. Amen. Il Signore sia con voi. E con il tuo spirito. O Signore, che hai inviato i profeti ad annunciare la venuta del Cristo tuo Figlio, fa risplendere su di noi la tua luce, perché illuminati dalla tua parola camminiamo verso di te con cuore generoso e fedele. Per il nostro Signore Gesù Cristo, tuo Figlio, che è Dio, e vive e regna con te nell'unità dello Spirito Santo per tutti i secoli dei secoli.
Anunciai a todos os povos e dizei: eis que vem o Senhor para nos salvar. Das mãos do anjo subiu à presença de Deus o fumo do incenso, juntamente com as orações dos santos. Senhor, a vós clamo, socorrei-me sem demora. Escutai a minha voz quando vos invoco. Suba até vós a minha oração como incenso. Elevem-se minhas mãos como oblação da tarde. Guardai, Senhor, a minha boca. Defendei a porta dos meus lábios. Não deixeis meu coração inclinar-se para o mal, nem praticar a iniquidade com os malfeitores, nem tomar parte em seus lautos banquetes. Castigue-me o justo e repreenda-me com misericórdia, mas o óleo dos ímpios nunca me perfume a cabeça. Enquanto fazem o mal, não deixarei de rezar. Os seus chefes foram precipitados contra o rochedo e compreenderam como eram suaves as minhas palavras. Tal como terra cavada e lavrada, foram seus ossos dispersos à boca do abismo. Para vós, Senhor Deus, se voltam os meus olhos. Em vós me refugio, não me desampareis. Defendei-me do laço que me prepararam. Defendei-me das ciladas dos malfeitores. Glória ao Pai, e ao Filho, e ao Espírito Santo, como era no princípio, agora e sempre. Amém. Anunciai a todos os povos e dizei: eis que vem o Senhor para nos salvar.
Beato l'uomo a cui il Signore perdona il peccato.
La colpa, ne perdonato il peccato. Beato l'uomo a cui Dio non imputa alcun male e nel cui spirito non è inganno. Tacevo e si logoravano le mie ossa, mentre gemevo tutto il giorno. Giorno e notte pesava su di me la tua mano, come per arsura d'estate inaridiva il mio vigore. Ti ho manifestato il mio peccato, non ho tenuto nascosto il mio errore. Ho detto: confesserò al Signore le mie colpe, e tu hai rimesso la malizia del mio peccato. Per questo ti prega ogni fedele nel tempo dell'angoscia, quando irromperanno grandi acque, non lo potranno raggiungere. Tu sei il mio rifugio, mi preservi dal pericolo, mi circondi di esultanza per la salvezza. Ti farò saggio, ti indicherò la via da seguire,
non siate come il cavallo e come il mulo privi di intelligenza. Si piega la loro fierezza con morso e briglie. Se no a te non si avvicinano.
Molti saranno i dolori dell'empio, ma la grazia circonda chi confida nel Signore.
Gioite nel Signore ed esultate giusti. Giubilate voi tutti retti di cuore.
Gloria al Padre e al Figlio
e allo Spirito Santo, come era nel principio e ora e sempre, nei secoli dei secoli. Amen. Beato l'uomo a cui il Signore perdona il peccato.
Il Signore gli ha dato il potere, la gloria e il regno. Tutti i popoli serviranno a Lui.
Noi ti rendiamo grazie, Signore Dio Onnipotente, che sei e che eri,
perché hai messo mano alla tua grande potenza e hai instaurato il tuo regno.
leggenti fremettero, ma è giunta l'ora della tua ira, il tempo di giudicare i morti,
Di dare la ricompensa ai tuoi servi, ai profeti e ai santi, e a quanti temono il tuo nome, piccoli e grandi.
ora si è compiuta la salvezza, la forza e il regno del nostro Dio e la potenza del suo Cristo.
Poiché è stato precipitato l'accusatore, colui che accusava i nostri fratelli, davanti al nostro Dio giorno e notte.
Essi lo hanno vinto per il sangue dell'agnello, nella testimonianza del loro martirio, perché hanno disprezzato la vita fino a morire.
Esultate dunque, o cieli, rallegratevi e gioite voi che abitate in essi.
Gloria al Padre e al Figlio e allo Spirito Santo, come era nel principio e ora e sempre, nei secoli dei secoli. Amen. Il Signore gli ha dato il potere, la gloria e il regno. Tutti i popoli serviranno a Lui.
Go on waiting calmly, my brothers, till the coming of the Lord, like the farmer waiting for the good fruit of the earth, till the early and late rains have come. Be as calm in your waiting. Let your hearts be strong, because the coming of the Lord is near. See, the judge is waiting at the doors.
Mostraci, Signore, Dio dell'universo.
Vieni a liberarci, Signore, Dio dell'universo.
Mostraci il tuo volto e saremo salvi.
Dio dell'universo.
Gloria al Padre, e al Figlio, e allo Spirito Santo.
Vieni a liberarci, Signore, Dio dell'universo.
Benedetta sei tu fra le donne, benedetto il frutto del tuo seno.
L'anima mia magnifica il Signore, il mio spirito esulta in Dio mio Salvatore.
Perché ha guardato l'umiltà della sua serva, d'ora in poi tutte le generazioni mi chiameranno beata.
Grandi cose ha fatto in me l'Onnipotente, e santo è il suo nome.
Di generazione in generazione la sua misericordia si stende su quelli che lo temono.
Ha spiegato la potenza del suo braccio, ha disperso i superbi dei pensieri del loro cuore.
Ha rovesciato i potenti dai troni, ha innalzato gli umili.
Ha ricolmato di beni gli affamati, ha rimandato i ricchi a mani vuote.
Ha soccorso Israele suo servo, ricordandosi della sua misericordia.
Come aveva promesso ai nostri padri, ad Abramo e alla sua discendenza per sempre. Gloria al Padre e al Figlio e allo Spirito Santo, come era nel principio e ora e sempre, nei secoli dei secoli. Amen. Benedetta sei tu fra le donne, benedetto il frutto del tuo seno.
Acclamiamo Cristo, Salvatore del mondo, annunziato dai profeti, e innalziamo a Lui la nostra preghiera.
Vieni, Signore Gesù.
Verbe éternel, tu as créé l'univers et dans la plénitude de temps, tu t'es fait homme pour notre salut. Viens et sauve-nous du péché et de la mort.
Vieni, Signore Gesù.
Luz verdadeira que ilumina todo o homem, vinde e dissipa as trevas da nossa ignorância.
Vieni, Signore Gesù.
Hijo unigénito, que vives en el Padre, ven y revélanos el amor que nos salva.
Vieni, Signore Gesù.
Va al libretto. grant to all men and women the freedom of children of God.
Vieni, Signore Gesù.
Tu che hai vinto le barriere della divisione e dell'odio, riunisci al banchetto eterno i morti di tutte le guerre.
Vieni, Signore Gesù.
Qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentatione, sed libera nos a malo.
Mostra la tua potenza, Signore, e con grande forza soccorri i tuoi fedeli. La tua grazia vinca le resistenze del peccato e affretti il momento della salvezza. Per il nostro Signore Gesù Cristo, tuo Figlio, che è Dio, e vive e regna con te nell'unità dello Spirito Santo per tutti i secoli dei secoli.
Amen.
Il Signore sia con voi.
E con il tuo spirito.
Vi benedica il Dio Onnipotente, Padre, Figlio e Spirito Santo.
Amen.
Andate in pace.
Rendiamo grazie a Dio.
As I kneel before you, as I bow my head in prayer, take this day, make it yours, and fill me with your love. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu. All I have I give you, every dream and wish I yours, Mother of Christ, Mother of light, present them to my Lord. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu.
Allora buon riposo e a domani, eh? A che ora?
Alle 8.
Per favore, eh? Non dormite troppo.